Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about today, including absolutely massive buffs to a lot of underperforming classes like Elemental and Enhancement Shaman, Shadow Priest, and Balance Druid, nerfs to the infamous Kelris boss inside of Black Fathom Deeps, and a couple of issues we definitely need to talk about inside of Season of Discovery. My name's Sky from the Comeback Kids. This is your Season of Discovery news. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee. We got a lot to talk about. Starting off, ladies and gentlemen, we were absolutely blessed on the World of Warcraft forums from the developers last night, showing that there are a ton of class changes coming as of the current hotfix that happens today, which means by the time you get home from work, most of these changes should be in effect. As we know, in Black Fathom Deeps, there have been a lot of underperforming specializations, and it looks like a lot of them are getting big changes. Let's jump right into it. Starting things off with the most underperforming spec in the game, everyone's favorite garbage can, the Shadow Priest. Alright, all jokes aside, we finally have some good news to talk about with the Shadow Priest, with all three of their rune abilities being buffed significantly. Homunculi's damage is now being increased by a whopping 100%, Void Plague's damage being increased by 200%, and Twisted Faith now increases damage done by Mind Blast and Mind Flay by 50% on targets affected with Shadow Ward Pain. On average, you can see right here, ladies and gentlemen, from the Warcraft logs on screen, that each Homunculi minion was totaling out for about 100 damage for a combined total of 300 damage. With these changes now being introduced, you could be expecting Homunculi to now deal a total of roughly about 600 damage if your minions stay on top of the target, which is pretty damn good for a cast and forget damaging ability. Not only that, increasing your damage on Mind Blast and Mind Flay by an additional 30% is really going to shape the edges on this class and make it a significant threat in PvP, as well as solid DPS spec in terms of PvE. It's important to know, ladies and gentlemen, that the reason they're so frugal with Shadow Priest buffs is because everybody knows that this class doesn't really come online until roughly around level 40. You have talents like Shadow Weaving for 15% increased shadow damage, Darkness for 10% increased shadow damage, and of course, Shadow Form for 15% increased shadow damage, totaling up to about 40% increased damage. This class is going to be an absolute powerhouse next phase, and it's really just about making it through this phase until that time comes, so great changes for Shadow Priest. I'll be seeing you guys inside of Black Fathom Deeps. You all from the community were all raving so much about how Druid Star Search ability is doing absolutely nothing, and it's a wasted rune slot. Well, lo and behold, we got some changes to that also. The Star Surge rune ability now deals 182% increased damage. The cooldown is reduced to 6 seconds, which was previously 10, and Star Surge's mana cost is reduced to 1% of their base mana, which was previously 3%. Now, Balanced Druids didn't see as much love as Shadow Priest did, but this is definitely a step in the right direction, making their rune ability hit much harder. As you can see from the Warcraft logs on screen here, the average cast for Star Surge is hitting for roughly around 87 damage, and sometimes in other logs hitting closer to 90. By taking this data and increasing it by 182%, you could be expecting Star Surge to hit well over 225 damage each time you cast it from now on a minor 6-second cooldown. So now you have Moonfire, Sunfire, and Star Surge hitting for a nice chunk of damage, which will make this class feel great inside of PvE when it comes to dodging, avoiding mechanics, and continuing to DPS all on the move. I mean, in PvP, you can now bring a lot of instant cast spread pressure inside of Warsong Gold, which is going to make balance an absolute nuisance. Don't forget that you are missing nearly all of your damage-increasing talents on the Balanced Druid tree, like Vengeance for more critical strike damage, Moon Fury to increase damage overall, and Moonkin Form to give you 3% more spell critical hit chance. All in all, balance is definitely on its way to be a lot better toward Phase 2. When it comes to Hunter, everybody and their mother knows that the Scorpion Beast Mastery build is dominating everything right now, with their pets dealing over 50% of their total damage. Players were really hoping that this type of gameplay style would be adjusted, and once again, the classic developers are making changes for the better. Hunter changes including Flanking Strike now gaining the benefits of weapon enhancements like Sharpening Stones. It's now on a global cooldown and is now properly treated as a melee attack, which will now increase the damage of Flanking Strike drastically if you're playing a melee build. Not only that, the Hunter Pet's attack values have been updated to better scale with Hunter attack power. The developers noted that pet spells, just as Scorpid Poison or Lightning Breath, were scaling too well, and pets using physical abilities were scaling too little. So, what they did is they worked on normalizing the amount of pets' abilities individually, pretty much saying that abilities for pets that cost more focus will receive more benefit from attack power bonuses from their hunter. Then, the abilities that can be casted a lot more frequently that cost a little focus get toned down, and it all evens out. The biggest change is going to be directly to Scorpion's Poison, however, which now distributes the additional bonus damage from attack power evenly over each stack of poison on the target. Previously, they noted that the poison received most of its benefits from the hunter's attack power in the very first stack applied to the target. That's why it felt like you were taking so much damage immediately if a Scorpion was on you. They also now state that pets will receive a smaller portion of a hunter's armor and stamina, because currently hunter pets were gaining way too much durability from hunter stats to the point where some pets can have more than double the health and armor of a well-geared level 25 player. They made it clear that they want them to have the ability to tank certain dungeon and raid encounters, but they should never be so effective to the point where they're objectively the correct choice. And lastly, another massive change is that Aspect of the Lion has been redesigned and will now function as an aura. This means that it's possible to have Aspect of the Lion active in addition to having another aspect on your character, such as Aspect of the Hawk. This will pretty much be an offset to lower the amount of damage that some hunter pets will deal and to make talents such as Improved Aspect of the Hunter more attractive to hunters using Aspect of the Lion. This effect is going to be immediately embedded into the game, but the tooltip will not change yet and will be fixed in a later hotfix. All of this was absolutely amazing news and changes to keep Hunter in line and heading in the right direction naturally. I just think that they need to start bringing up some other abilities from them to make up for some of these changes, because I think they might be getting hit a little too hard if they don't do anything to make up for it. Now, when it comes to the Rogue, there wasn't much changes other than some bug fixes towards Saber Slash, which is going to, in fact, increase its overall damage. With the key one being Saber Slash damage is now properly considered a bleed and benefits from the Mangle debuff. If you didn't know, Mangle was a Druid ability that increases all bleed damage the target takes by 30%. If you apply this change to the Saber Slash damage over time effect, which now averages for about roughly 63 damage at 3 stacks, a bleed stack of 3 should now be hitting for roughly 80 damage. Now, we all know that Rogue is pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to pure DPS, but increasing their highest DPS output ability seems like a little much in my opinion. I'm sure this was just a change to make sure the ability was working as intended, but my guess is that they're going to be keeping an eye out on this ability in particular and making some fine adjustments over the next couple of weeks. When it comes to the Shaman and Season of Discovery, it really has felt like they've gotten the short end of the stick. Druids now have Wind Fury, Ret Paladins get so many more damaging abilities and keep all their utility. They don't have access to Mana Spring Totem yet, and they're still missing their Air Totems. Elemental and Enhancement Shamans were near the bottom of the raid logs on nearly every boss fight, but things are looking to change. Starting off with Enhancement Shaman's Lava Lash ability, the damage will now be increased to 150% weapon damage, which was previously 100%. Additionally, the mana cost will now be reduced down to 1% of your base mana, which was previously 4%. And lastly, for enhancement, your dual wield specialization will now give you a 10% increased chance to hit with spells and melee attacks while dual wielding, which was previously 5%, massively increasing your damage overall as an Enhancement Shaman. From what you can see on the logs right here, Lava Lash is on average hitting for about roughly 90 damage. Increasing this by 50%, you're looking at Lava Lash now hitting for roughly about 135 damage on a 6-second cooldown, which over the duration of a long fight should start to make this spec feel a lot better. Now, because Warrior hasn't gotten any hit increases, Enhancement Shamans should feel pretty lucky right about now. When it comes to the Elemental Shaman, though, the only change was that your overload percentage is now increased from 33% up to 50%. If you didn't know, overload gives your casted abilities a chance to duplicate at 50% effectiveness. I think the overload rune design is kind of bland and impossible to balance because it's literally based off of RNG, but not only that, it's very hard to deal damage as an Elemental Shaman when all of your primary talents come online later in the game, including Elemental Fury for increased critical strike damage, Lightning Mastery to reduce the cast time of your Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, and Elemental Mastery for a big damage burst window. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have overall elemental resistances being lowered in Black Fathom Deeps to more appropriate for a level 25 raid. Yellah's Shadow Resist is now being lowered to 25, Lorgish Jet's Nature Resistance now being lowered to 25, Twilight Lord Kelrish Shadow and Arcane Resistance once again lowered to 25, and another big change is that his Phantasmal Priestesses, all the resistance for them has been lowered to 0. This means that it's no longer bad if double casters are sent down to the Dream World inside of Phase 1. Finally, you have Invading Nightmare, Shadow, and Fire Resist lowered to 25, Void Elemental, Shadow Resist lowered to 25, and finally, the Corrosive Droplets, Nature Resist being lowered to 25, and their Frost Resist lowered to 0. All of these changes are significantly going to increase the damage of every single caster spec in the game inside of BFD, because as we know it, it has been nothing but the physical damage show for all DPS in the game the last few weeks. And for the final changes on today's hotfix, Boon of the Black Fathom world buff has now been adjusted to provide 3% spell hit and 25 bonus spell power, in addition to the other physical damage and movement speed effects. They stated that spellcasters in general were struggling in BFD, mostly due to poor scaling without spell power and a higher requirement of spell hit to reliably hit creatures 3 levels above the caster. They emphasize to keep those chrono boons handy and don't stand in the fire to lose your buff. In my personal opinion, this change of the world buff feels a little bit off because your damage is now going to drastically increase if you have this buff active, and it's going to feel really crappy if you accidentally die and lose it, or just simply don't care enough to grab it or mess up the boon or whatever. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Now, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have all good news today because we have some things that are plaguing Season of Discovery that we really need to talk about. The first one is, constantly throughout Azeroth, you are seeing hunter bots absolutely everywhere, camping mining and herb nodes, farming dungeons completely on their own, and destroying the market on prices because everything is becoming so saturated. My favorite Grave Moss location to make shadow protection potions for my guild has been absolutely dominated by troll hunter bots that you can see on the screen here. It doesn't matter whether I hop on a different layer or my other guildies invite me, these bots are taking over all the layers on the server and it's becoming a serious problem. Not only that, hunter pets are stronger than ever, and gold sellers are foaming at the mouth farming mobs outside in the open world as high as 8 levels above their level. I've sent out at least 10 reports against bots, and Blizzard has only banned about 2 of them, so hopefully in the future they can even out this problem and get rid of this botting crisis. Now, if you've ever played Warsong Gulch, listen up because I'm sure you've had this problem. I think we've all been a victim of queuing up casually for a Warsong Gulch for some quick PvP fun and then getting absolutely obliterated by a full pre-made on the opposing team. If you've been on the forums the last few weeks, players have been begging for the option for a pre-made queue option, going as far as saying, I just want a somewhat even field of play. You have to queue into 6 sweaty pre-mades to get that good pug v pug game. An absolute waste of time, nothing but disrespect for sticking with this system. Other players not even complaining, but just simply giving solutions to the problem. For example, having a 2 to 3 bracket queue up system, one where you have pre-made versus pre-made, where full groups fight other full groups, partial pre-mades where groups of 2 to 5 are formed into full teams and pitted against one another, and finally the solo queue option where it's only individual players that queue up alone. I personally think that this sort of 3-bracket system can be a great and even way for all types of players to enjoy instance PvP events, whether you want to take a crack at it alone with a couple friends or an entire group all to yourself. Moving on now to the community responses from our previous video, which hit a whopping 100,000 views over on YouTube yesterday. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into that video, giving it a like, and supporting the algorithm to keep this dream alive, man, and pushing us to be really the best we could possibly be when it comes to making Season of Discovery content for you all out there. So once again, thank you. First up, we got Terradar19, who says, Season of Discovery will be a massive success at 60, then they will absolutely do an expansion kind of thing, including alternate lore, etc. This is kind of what we wanted, and they're actually listening this time. And I gotta agree, ladies and gentlemen, I think Season of Discovery right now, at this point in time, is an absolutely home run out of the park, and it's easily the best and most active Blizzard team that I have seen in a very long time for World of Warcraft. There really is nothing but good times ahead for us, I would say, for the next 6 to 8 months, so shout out to the devs. Next up, we got Jello995 saying, I'm happy to see everyone wanting the phase to be longer than shorter. Everybody needs to get out there and enjoy some MMO adventures, travel to different continents, help your friends even if it doesn't benefit you. Things along these lines make the best moments. We even had William Morris 249 stating, whoever made the comment about taking my time and not rushing things, I really needed that. I want to start in all, and when Phase 2 comes out, I'm going to enjoy myself from level 25 to 40 now. And I gotta tell you all, ladies and gentlemen, it is very true. For most of you playing this game, you need to remember that you need to try and take your time and enjoy these moments. Do not try to rush and be on someone else's schedule if you don't need to, because Season of Discovery's entire purpose is about bringing us back to those olden MMORPG days where the journey, friendships, and discovery is the main source of content. Lastly, we have Kikirian stating, I really love the passion of the current classic development team. And I gotta say that I do agree. You could see in their eyes and in all of these interviews the passion and love they have for the game. Truly, that was released back in 2004. They're honoring the classic game and adding onto it rather than trying to shape it into something that it really isn't. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, leave a comment below for me to respond to it live here on these news videos to have a little bit of a discussion point and talk about it. I would love to see your opinions on some of the topics in these videos, so if you want your voice to be heard, let me know all about it below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe to get absolutely flooded with Season of Discovery content. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. It is an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. Until the very end, my name's Sky from the Comeback Kids. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.